Welcome to Showing Up Anyway, the podcast for people who are not perfect. On this show, we talk about intuitive eating, fitness without obsession, and healing your relationship with food and your body. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Showing Up Anyway. Look who showed up. You did. And I'm so glad that you're here. Today I wanted to circle back to where we first started, giving yourself permission to be imperfect. And I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. And so I'm going to call this episode When All or Nothing Leaves You with Nothing. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the kind of perfection where you are just organized or driven or you like things done a certain way. What I mean is the kind that tells you if you don't do this perfectly, you might as well not do it at all. This all or nothing type of thinking. You miss one workout, so the whole week's ruined. You had one meal that wasn't on plan, and so the rest of the day doesn't matter anymore. You're either in or you're out. That is exhausting. A lot of people think that type of all or nothing mentality is what discipline and commitment looks like. Like if you're not perfect, you just don't want it bad enough. But I think that deep down, it usually comes from a place of fear. A fear of failing, a fear of being judged, a fear that you're never going to be good enough unless you're doing everything right. Unfortunately, that really doesn't leave a lot of space to be human. I was thinking about the reasons that we get this way, and I've narrowed it down to a few. If you grew up in a home where love felt conditional, where you were praised only when you got straight A's or excelled in something, it probably has shaped how you view success as an adult. When you learn as a kid that I'm only good when I'm the best, and you grow up, anything less than excellence feels like a failure. So it goes without saying that something hard, like a fitness or a health journey, is going to be constantly demoralizing because you can't be perfect in everything, can you? You can't eat perfectly every day forever. You can't be active every single day, no matter how badly you want it. It also shows up as a need for control, maybe because of instability or trauma or unpredictability in your life. When things have felt out of control for a long time, your brain sort of grabs onto that black or white thinking because clarity feels like safety. And at one point, that was probably a survival mechanism. Splitting the world into safe and unsafe probably helped you make quick decisions and protect yourself. But now, even small hiccups like missing a workout or eating something off plan is going to feel like a crisis. What helped you back then might be holding you back now. And I don't know, this one might just be a little one, but maybe the fact that we are constantly inundated and surrounded on a daily basis by diet culture, that might also have an impact. Do you know what I mean? Like if you've ever been on a diet, you probably know what I'm talking about. Modern diets are built on all or nothing rules. 75 Hard says you have to follow a strict list of tasks, random tasks, every day for 2.5 months. Whole30 says you have to cut out all processed foods for a month. And while you're trying to do all that, at the same time, social media is flooding you with perfect bodies and weight loss ads. You see what I eat in a day videos filled with neatly portioned meals and perfect aesthetics. And all that just sends a really clear but incorrect message about what health is supposed to look like. It tells you it's supposed to be strict rules and perfect habits and fast results. It tells you that slow progress means you're not serious enough about it and flexibility means laziness. It sucks. But I'm not going to get started talking about those diets, okay? I want to circle back to perfectionism because I also think there is a little bit of personality and mental health tendencies associated with that too. So people who are very type A, high achieving, maybe people pleasers might be more prone to all or nothing type thinking. Sometimes it comes from low self-esteem or anxiety or OCD. I think the common thread that connects all of those is a belief that you're only going to ever be worthy or safe or in control if you're perfect. If you have a perfect body, if you're perfect in your diet, if you're perfect in your performance, which is an impossibly high bar. Now let's talk about how perfectionism shows up in your day-to-day, because it's one thing to understand perfectionism as like a concept. It's another to recognize the way that it actually shows up in your habits. Probably the biggest way it shows up is in something called the what the hell effect, where one small slip up is really all it takes to throw everything else away. For example, let's say you've been eating well all day. You're feeling good about your choices. You've planned your meals, but somebody brings dessert into the office break room and you weren't expecting that. Well, You don't want to miss out, right? So you want to have a bit. But afterwards, you feel so guilty that you had something sweet and broke your diet. Well, what the hell? You might as well just have 3 more pieces and you can get started again tomorrow. Once that line is crossed, it can feel a lot easier to just keep going than to stop and check in with yourself. And the same thing happens with exercise. If you plan for an hour-long workout, but you only have 30 minutes, you might just say, well, I'm just not going to go. I don't have enough time. Or if you miss one session on a Monday, you think, well, God, I missed that workout, so the whole week's ruined. I'll start over next week. Objectively, you can probably see how silly that is, but in the moment, it feels real. It feels like it makes sense. A lot of people struggle with sticking to things because the pressure to get everything right each and every day is exhausting. And when those unrealistic expectations are constantly unmet, you feel ashamed and you feel guilty. I mean, why wouldn't you? Constantly failing would make anyone feel bad. But then you start telling yourself stories like, well, I just can't stick to anything. I always mess this up. And what ends up being the biggest barrier is that voice in your head. It's really not the missed workout or the DoorDash meal. You can recover from all that. It's the meaning that you assign to it. The thought that a single slip up means the whole thing is ruined. And when you tell yourself that, when you convince yourself that, your inner critic will show up so fast and so loud, and unfortunately, it's rarely kind. And when your relationship with food and exercise is driven by shame, it becomes really hard to want to keep going. It doesn't feel good anymore. And instead of being something that supports your life and improves it, it becomes another area where you feel like you're failing. It's not that you're dramatic, okay? This is what perfectionism does. It makes this whole journey feel like a tightrope where one wrong move is going to mean devastation. And eventually, after failing so many times, you start avoiding the whole thing altogether. Does this sound familiar? Does it feel like your life? If it does, you're not the only one. A lot of us were taught if you can't do it right, you're better off not doing it at all. That's what keeps us stuck. But when you start recognizing those thoughts, you give yourself a chance to shift them. And that's where everything starts to change. You don't need to do everything perfectly to make progress. You need something that's flexible, something you can come back to when you slip up. Not a flawless plan, but a supportive one. And I'm going to give myself a little shameless coaching plug here, okay? If you want some support because you've struggled with this, go take a look at my website. I am in the process of revamping it soon and making it feel a little more like me. But when you go there, you can apply to work with my team and I can help you create a more flexible and sustainable group of habits that make you feel more like you. What do you think this type of all or nothing mindset does to your long-term well-being? Do you think it's good for you? Do you think it makes you tougher? I don't think so. I think, ironically, it makes everything a lot harder. A cycle of diving in 100% and then quitting completely means that you are constantly restarting from scratch. Unlike the spiral of healing where you're making imperfect progress, this is a yo-yo pattern, up and down, that leads to a lot less improvement than if you had just been a little bit more conservative and consistent. I've said it several times on the show so far, long-term success in wellness really comes from sustainable habits. But all or nothing thinking throws sustainability out the window. It's impossible to sustain perfection. You can't even get there. And when you are living under that kind of tyranny, it chips away at you. You feel it in your body. You feel it in your mood. You feel it in your relationships. If you're a perfectionist, you probably stay in a high state of anxiety, don't you? You're constantly having to monitor yourself and be on edge about potential slip-ups, which means that your cortisol level is higher and you're probably more prone to fatigue and poor sleep, and you have a greater chance of illness. Take it from me, someone who constantly pursued perfection on my weight loss journey. It drains the joy from things that are supposed to be making your life better. I felt discouraged, I felt guilty, and I started avoiding the things that I once enjoyed. I specifically remember bringing my meal prep to Disneyland and to the Orange County Fair on 2 separate occasions because I couldn't take a single goddamn day to enjoy myself or indulge even a little. And eventually, I started to resent those healthy habits. You might find that you do the same thing. You do a 180 and you rebound into even unhealthier behaviors out of spite. The TLDR here is that perfectionism and all or nothing thinking is unsustainable. It creates high highs and very low lows. Real and sustainable wellness should make you healthier and happier. If you're always stressed from a journey like this, you need to take a closer look at how perfect you're expecting yourself to be. The good news is that there are some strategies that you can use to shift towards a healthier outlook. Hooray! Can you imagine if I was just like, too bad, there's nothing you can do here, you're stuck forever. So the first thing that you need to embrace is the idea that consistent good effort beats inconsistent perfect effort. This is a phrase that I learned early in my journey that I love to repeat. It means that doing something is always better than doing nothing. You can also call it the for the most part mindset. If you set a goal to walk 8,000 steps this week, add for the most part to the end of it. I'm going to walk 8,000 steps every day for the most part. And if you hit 5 out of 7 of those days, well, damn it, you accomplished your goal. And those 5 days definitely had more of an impact than if you'd done it 3 days in a row, missed a day, and then quit the goal entirely, right? If you plan ahead for a nutritious week, but you ate ice cream 1 or 2 nights, well, the week isn't lost. You still ate nutritious foods for the most part. Over time, you're going to prove to yourself that the occasional rest day or treat does not erase your results, and that's going to keep you more sane and more motivated. It might help to think about your effort as like a dial instead of a switch, okay? So instead of flipping between on and off, imagine that you can adjust the intensity however you need to. Maybe a busy week hits or you're in your luteal phase and your energy is really low. Instead of skipping workouts altogether, you just adjust accordingly. So maybe you don't do an hour-long workout. You just do a 20-minute home workout or a yoga session instead of a long session at the gym. If you're traveling and you don't have a lot of control around your meals, maybe you just focus on trying to get in some vegetables even if the rest of your dinner is not ideal. All or nothing thinking hates that kind of flexibility, but it is one of the most important skills that you can build. Adopting a flexible mindset means that you already ahead of time expect and prepare for obstacles. Psychologists call this coping ahead. If one of my clients comes to me and says they're going to be out of town for work, for example, we'll probably forego gym workouts and maybe we just focus on steps that week, or we have a 15-minute body weight routine as backup. Or if they have a really stressful week at work ahead and home-cooked dinners just aren't in the cards, well, we might look at the menu of a restaurant they like and find a nutritious option for takeout. That way, we always have a middle ground between perfection and giving up. And over time, practicing that type of flexibility is going to train you to automatically look for solutions instead of excuses. Another thing that you have got to temper down is your inner critic. My goodness, some of y'all can be so mean to yourselves. You have to start responding to setbacks with kindness and not criticism. Tell yourself, hey, one small slip up does not define me. I'm doing great. I'll get back on track tomorrow. That's what you'd tell a friend, right? Shift your perspective from judgment to understanding and treat yourself with the same compassion that you'd give someone else you care about. Please start being nicer to yourself. Damn. And please start reframing your negative thoughts too. If you catch yourself saying something like, I'm a failure because I skipped my run today. No, pause. And I want you to counter that. Maybe something a little bit more grounded. Something like, I'm disappointed that I missed my run, but one day doesn't erase my progress. I can take a walk later if I need to. If you catch yourself using extreme language like always, never, ruined, I want you to take that as a sign that your perfectionist brain is talking and soften that language from I broke my diet, I have zero discipline, to something like, hey, I ate something off plan, which happens to everybody. I'm going to enjoy it, and then I can make a different choice at my next meal. And at the same time, don't forget to actually acknowledge what's going well. Celebrating small wins is a really powerful way to quiet that all or nothing voice. Find those NSVs that we talked about recently. Maybe that's reaching for water instead of soda, or going outside for a walk when you felt really tired. These are not just participation trophies, okay? They are legitimate proof that you are showing up for yourself. And when you start noticing them, you train your brain to find success in the process and not just the end result. So you had a donut that day you didn't plan for. So you missed a workout that week. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means you're human. And when health feels supportive instead of punitive, it really becomes a lot easier to keep going. One little thing that I do with my group coaching, I say little, but I really think it is very impactful, is that I have them talk about wins and lessons learned. Not wins and losses, lessons learned. And I've had clients tell me that shift in language has really helped them start to look at their challenges a little bit differently. It might seem like semantics, but subconsciously, it's a mindset shift from failure to feedback. So not only do they get accountability each week, which is incredibly helpful, I also help them focus on things like consistency and self-compassion. We use language like opportunity and practice and experiment rather than failure or cheating. You can ask them. I get after them when they say words like bad and junk. Okay, in a kind way, of course, but I remind them, and I'll remind you, that your journey is a learning process. It is not a pass or fail test. When you apply these strategies, you are essentially retraining your mindset, okay? It's not going to change overnight because perfectionism probably has been ingrained in you for years or decades. But each time you choose a more balanced response over an all or nothing type reaction, you are weakening that old pattern and you are strengthening a new synapse in your brain. Those small slip-ups are not going to trigger a meltdown as easily, and you're going to start to be able to find a more sustainable rhythm for yourself. This fitness, health, wellness journey, whatever you want to call it, does not need to be your entire life. It just needs to be a part of it. You don't have to do everything right all the time. In fact, when you stop expecting that of yourself, you're going to almost certainly get better results because you're no longer derailing yourself with extreme approaches and burnout. Let me give you a specific real life example, okay? I have a client who is a very busy lawyer. She has lost well over 100 pounds, totally changed her lifestyle, sort of the epitome of success when you think about it, okay? But there was a point where we had her doing, I think, 4 days a week of workouts, and she just could not at the time make that work because I think she had a busy trial or something. But she did not want me to take that away from her, okay? She was like, no, I can get them done. But after a couple of weeks with her workouts not checked off, I made the call. I said, we're going to back off a little bit. And she was a little reluctant because I get it. It feels a little bit like admitting defeat. But I assured her that she was not doing anything wrong, and I just wanted to try a different approach. So I think we brought her workouts down to like 3 times a week, and we shortened them to about half the length that they previously were. She trusted me. And because she did, she was able to get almost all of those smaller workouts in, and she was able to be much more consistent than before. She was able to show up for herself again. We cranked that dial down for a little while, and because of that, she was able to do more with a little bit less. And she felt proud of that. Sustainable change does not ask for perfection. It asks for presence, for patience, and for a plan you can live with. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Showing Up Anyway. You can find it for free on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And wherever you're listening, if you like the show, I'd love it if you gave me a 5-star review because that does help other people find the show, and hopefully it'll help change their life just like you're looking to change yours. If you're listening on Spotify, though, you can follow me and tap the bell icon so you get notifications when new episodes come out. I'm Coach Adam. Remember, when things get challenging, keep showing up anyway.